Thanks for joining me today for Working on Purpose. This is a course on goals, setting and achieving them. I'm Kent Holland. I wrote this course and the book that goes with it. My contact information is up here on the slide that I'm going to put up. And throughout this course today, there are going to be a number of exercises that I think that if you will take those exercises, you will receive real benefit out of this course. Much more than if you just listen to the video and say, oh, that was kind of interesting. No, the way to do it is the real practical use of the exercises. The exercises I'll throw up during the presentation just real quickly, but really I'm going to put them at the end of the presentation so that you can just pause the video, write them down, use them at your leisure. But I really encourage you, please take these exercises. I really guarantee that if you use those exercises, you will start achieving goals in a really powerful way. Why do we talk about goals? Well, first of all, we want to learn why goals are necessary and how to set and achieve them by putting them down very specifically in detail in writing. If we just simply have a goal in our mind, in our thoughts, but we don't really put them into writing, we're not going to be as effective at getting them accomplished. So we're really going to talk about putting written goals together and what is a realistic way to do that, and then to measure and achieve them. Goals increase our confidence to ask for what we want and need. We're going to learn effective elements of goal setting. We're going to learn the importance of goals for leisure time as well as for our work. And we're going to use these exercises that I mentioned so that we actually set and achieve goals, and we can measure where we are a year from now, 3 years from now, as to where we are today. Zig Ziglar, one of the absolute greats when it comes to setting goals, has said a couple really profound things, and I'm going to put them up here on this slide. He says, unless you have definite, precise, clearly set goals, you're not going to realize the maximum potential that lies within you. He also says, a man or woman without a goal is like a ship without a rudder. Each will drift and not drive. Each will end up on the beaches of despair, defeat, and despondency. That's pretty powerful stuff, but it's very real. And what we want to do is, by setting goals, we don't want to be like these people who are on these beaches of despair, defeat, and despondency. Well, what about you? Are you climbing the success ladder? And if you are you climbing the success ladder that's right for you? I went through years in my own life of being successful in a lot of ways, sort of having it all. And yet one day I came to the realization that I had the ladder against the wrong building, and that I'd gotten to the sort of a pinnacle of success, but I wasn't satisfied with where I was. And I needed to not maybe get all the way down, but I had to get pretty far back down that ladder and move it over and start again to build back up to where I wanted to be. And then and only then was I able to set goals that were meaningful for me, that accomplished things that were important to me, that make me very satisfied as an individual. When we're not seeking goals, we begin to stagnate. Interestingly, only 3% of Americans specifically commit their goals to paper. In a study at Yale done in 1953, researchers interviewed graduating class members and found that less than 3% of them were establishing goals or a plan. A follow-up study was done of that class in 1973, and it found that the group that had established goals were better adjusted emotionally, socially, and economically. Moreover, the 3% that had goals were worth more than the other 97% of the members combined. That's a very powerful statistic. Is it really necessary to have goals? You know, if we look at any kind of a project, it's so unwise to begin without planning ahead and without counting the cost. You've all seen that cute little sign that somebody paints that says, plan ahead. and the plan is real big letters, and then the head gets smaller and smaller and smaller until finally the D is real tiny, because they didn't even look to see how much space they had on the sign before starting to put the lettering. I'm involved in the construction industry. I'm a construction lawyer and a construction risk management consultant. I work on a lot of large projects around the country. And planning as to the design and the construction, planning a schedule, planning the material acquisition. These are such important tasks that you wouldn't begin to do one of these large projects without doing those things. So planning is just par for the course when you're doing a construction project. We wouldn't think of it doing it otherwise. That's even a biblical principle. There's a parable that talks about the fool who starts to build a building without having gotten the materials and the financing together, and then is humiliated before all of his friends when he can't finish. It's a principle that we need to appreciate. One of the things about goals is, ironically, you would think, perhaps some people think that I have a goal and now I'll become a slave to that goal. I'm not going to be happy because I'm always striving to get that goal. No, indeed, the goal gives us peace and freedom. And there's just, this has been my experience, that when I am working toward my goals, I am a much happier, content person, because I do have goals that I feel satisfied with my life, and then I have a peace and a freedom to do other things that aren't necessarily exactly on task with accomplishing goals, because, after all, I'm getting somewhere. So goals help us. They give us a sense of meaning, purpose, and direction. They enable us to live in the present while planning for the future. They promote our enthusiasm and our persistence. They help us to prioritize, and they make us more effective and efficient. They provide a means to evaluate our progress. And they help us to communicate what we want and need. In other words, communicating with others that, look, I'm trying to accomplish this goal. This is what I need from you. This is what I want. Will you help me with this? Well, can we work together on this? But before we can have a goal, we need to have some compelling reason to have that goal or to plan. And we need to feel that need. It can't just be an intellectual exercise of saying, gee, I think I ought to have a goal. Or that someone else is imposing on us saying, you know, you need to have a goal to get ahead. Well, unless I am buying into that with my heart and soul, that I feel that need, it's not going to be real. It's not going to be my goal. So if I don't feel the need, then why bother to have the goal? So first we need to really look at, where are we coming from? What is it that we feel compelled to do? Lack of goals actually leads to depression. So without goals and direction, people feel down and depressed. The only way to make long-term changes in our lives is to have long-term goals. So with all these great things that we see about, these statistics from Yale and how much better people did that had goals than those who don't, why don't more people set goals? And there are a number of reasons. First, poor self-image inhibits visualizing great possibilities and outcomes for a lot of people. And just if you've been beaten down and people have told you you can't get ahead, you can't do it, the naysayers in life can actually take a lot of the confidence that we need in order to say, yes, I can. I'm going to set this goal. It's achievable. So a poor self-image can be a problem. Another issue would be lack of conviction that goals are necessary or beneficial. And then a lack of knowledge concerning how to set goals. And then finally, potentially a fear of failure and embarrassment for having set goals, and maybe people know about them, and then you don't complete the goal, you don't accomplish the goal, and then are you afraid of that, are you embarrassed by that, and that stops some people. These are all things that we need to consider and get beyond. So what we're going to do in this course is we're going to talk about elements of effective goal setting, and how to really get us over the hurdle of those things that are the barriers to goal setting. So some of the elements, I'm going to list them. I'm going to put them on a slide here for you. 1, set goals that come out of your heart, your passion. They've got to be real to you. It's got to be something you feel. Set goals big enough to motivate you, but realistically achievable. You know, in teaching this course, particularly when I've taught it with homeless shelters and groups of people who have lost homes and they're trying to get back on their feet again, and they're being taught by these groups that sort of try to teach goals and money management and things of this nature to help people. It's interesting in that some of the individuals in that class, when we do the exercises, they put down their goal that they're going to have a $10 million mansion. Well, these are people who are living on the street today, or maybe they're living in an apartment that is provided by this homeless assistance group. It's not realistic that they're going to live in a $10 million home. I don't live in a $10 million home. What we need to do is get them to the point of saying, yeah, I'm going to have an apartment that I'm able to pay the rent for, or a condo, or a small house. That might be achievable. And if they were to set a small goal like that and then manage all their to-do list and their yearly goals, monthly goals, they might achieve that. They can measure how they're getting along toward that goal. But if they or you set some crazy goal like this $10 million mansion, never going to happen. So I had another individual, and he had come from Africa, and he wanted to go back to Africa to be a farmer, and he was going to become the wealthiest, biggest farmer in his country in Africa. Well, the man had never farmed other than his little half-acre plot of land, and he didn't know anything about farming, and that was quickly obvious. So here was someone who, rather than setting a goal of being the wealthiest farmer in his country in Africa, I wanted to teach him to set a realistic goal. To have a little plot of land in the local community where we can actually garden. In Virginia is where I am. You can go out and the county will give you a little piece of land inside of the community park area, and you can have your own plot of ground there and do your own farming. That would be a nice goal for him to start with. And unless he was willing to do that step, well, clearly he's not going to be a wealthy farmer one day. So these are the small steps, the realistic goals that we might set. We just cannot make it so big that we can't realistically achieve it. It's got to be big, but not too big. Third, we need to set goals as positive statements of what we're doing. And 4, we need to state them in great detail. So, for example, a number of years ago I decided I wanted a new convertible. And my wife thought that was pretty silly. She thought that this particular convertible I wanted was like a toy, and it was irresponsible. But it's really what I wanted. So we talked about it, and we agreed that I really would not get that convertible until I created a cash flow outside of my normal business that would pay the monthly payment on that convertible. And so that inspired me to create a lot of continuing education programs that actually paid a monthly royalty and book royalties that completely paid for a monthly payment. So I set, at the same time, I took a photograph of the exact car I wanted. It was silver. It was a Chrysler Sebring with a black convertible top, and I put that picture on my wall above my desk, and I looked at that picture every day. And I wrote down a goal that I was going to have that car by the spring of that particular year. And that was a very detailed goal. I had the date, the year, the car, the color, the money goal that went with it, and I think that because I focused so much on that, and it was an achievable goal, big but achievable, I got there. I'm still driving that car 10 years later. I love the car. Proved my wife wrong. It wasn't a bad car after all. 5th item is set long-term goals, but then break them down as short-term goals and activities that you can begin today. 6, set your goals to be met on a daily basis. You know, we talked about big rocks when we were talking about time management. Well, goals are very much the same. We need to have a big goal, but then we've got to be able to break it down into a daily incremental item that's going to accomplish that goal. And that way every day we start tackling a big rock or a boulder, I should say a pebble, of what that big rock has been broken down into, so we attain that big goal. Share your goals with others who will encourage you and support you and help you, as well as hold you accountable. And finally, measure and keep track of your progress in achieving your goals. Goals have to be of sufficient importance to you that you're willing to accept the cost and consequences of pursuing the goal. Be sure that they arise out of your own values and core beliefs, and it's something that you really feel strongly about. And keep the cost and the benefit always in mind, because every goal has a cost and benefit. You know, they say no pain, no gain. If you're going to be a great marathon runner, you're going to do a lot of exercise, a lot of practice running to get into shape. If I'm going to be a tennis player, I'm going to play a lot of tennis in order to win a tournament. Everything we do takes time and practice, and we don't just simply show up one day and decide we're going to be the greatest basketball player or we're going to be the greatest attorney. Everything takes time, effort, training. And whenever we're doing that, we're having to give up something else. So if I'm going to be the best at, a sport, then I may not be able to participate in all the other sports I might like to do. I may have to take all that time and energy from those sports and put it into the one that I want to excel at. That is a cost that has a benefit. Well, how big are your goals? Again, goals need to be big enough that they create a sufficient excitement to motivate you to accomplish them. In the book Good to Great, Jim Collins calls these the big, hairy, audacious goals, the BHAGs. They should be long-term and short-term. Set long-term goals and then get started doing them right away by doing short-term activities that are consistent with a long-range goal. Keep that big picture always in front of you. Visualize into the future, and you will be more likely to overcome the short-term roadblocks. So if I'm visualizing how great it's going to be when I am skiing or snowboarding down this fantastic mountain, it's going to encourage me to get out there and keep practicing bigger and bigger, steeper and steeper hills in more and more precarious positions and locations, so that when I'm ready to do my helicopter jump, and I haven't done that, I'm ready. I wouldn't think of going and jumping onto the top of a mountain, coming down off of a helicopter, and coming down one of these extreme ski areas when I have not prepared for that. So visualize, that's what I'm going to do, and I've got a lot to do to get ready for that. State our goals with specificity. The more descriptively we state the goal, the more real that goal will become. It becomes more real to our subconscious mind and more ingrained into our psyche. You know, in driving my new silver Chrysler convertible by this coming spring, okay, I am saying I'm already visualizing myself driving that convertible this spring. So I'm driving my new silver Chrysler convertible by this coming spring. That's my goal. Not, I'm going to get a silver convertible one day. Well, that's not a goal. It didn't have enough clarity. It wasn't detailed enough. It didn't have any emotion. I couldn't see myself in it. I couldn't even picture what model it was or anything. I probably shouldn't have said a color there. Just, it's too general. I need it to be specific. The more you begin to experience the outcome from the goal as already being a reality, the greater the likelihood that that goal is going to become true. So goals must be specific and they must be focused. Let's talk about chunking the goals down to size. To write a book, and I've written 8 books now, I write specific goals on a whiteboard in my office and also on my to-do list on my computer. And I see those goals every day when I come into my office, and I see what I've got to do. I create this master plan, this master to-do list that is going to accomplish subparts to each one of my goals. So I'm going to create a monthly, weekly, and daily to-do list for the various activities. And I want to set deadlines and measure my progress in accomplishing those activities. So those activities are going to include doing research for the subject that I'm writing about, gathering articles, materials, interviewing people. And then I'm going to say I need to have a book by the end of the year, and I know that that book is going to probably be several hundred pages long. It's going to cover all these subjects, and so I now need to go out and break that book down. One of the more recent ones I did, I figured out a way that I could write a construction law book for design professionals without having to write all the chapters myself. So I located 14 authors, each contributed a chapter to the book. I edited those chapters and I wrote my own chapters, and by doing this I set a goal for each of them. I stayed on top of them. We all worked together. We got the book done within the time frame, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great project, and it never was a killer. It never became an impossible task, because I could always see this is what it's going to look like, and these are the activities that we're going to chunk down onto the calendar and get these done on a routine monthly, weekly, daily basis to have a book produced by the end of the year. So we need to set our deadlines and then measure our progress in achieving those deadlines.